Hey, today I'm making a video for you in a very strange place. I'm in a hotel, stuck, waiting for my canceled plane to become a new trip home. So there's crazy music in the background. There's a little bit of ambient noise around, but we're gonna push on because this is important. What I want to talk about today is what happens when our kids don't want to face the music. So have you ever been in a situation where we need to confront our kids, like they made a mistake or they maybe told a lie, they broke a rule, they didn't do something they said they were going to do, whatever, they made a mistake. And no matter how we approach them with it, it's just shame, denying, or in my case with my youngest kiddo, it's lots of excuses. Like, well, it wasn't really my fault because blah, 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 blah. Even if we're having the conversation in a way that's not about whose fault was it, even if we're having the conversation in a way where we're not upset and angry, it's hard to accept that we've made a mistake in this world, and kids are no exception to that. They feel the same way, right? And so here are two tips. I call this like the 1-2 punch of helping kids become comfortable with making mistakes, because that is the whole point of life, right? How do we grow? How do we learn? It's by making mistakes. And if we can't handle how it feels when we mess up, we can't grow. And that is a really big problem for a kid because their whole life is growing. Of course, that's the way it is when we're adults too. But for kids, that is like job number one for them, is to grow and learn and change and become adults, right? So tolerance for the feelings around mistakes is super huge. So 1-2 punch for you on helping your child tolerate the feelings that come along with making mistakes. And I am saying this is the 1-2 punch after you have already done your number one job as a parent, which is reaching neutrality around your kids' choices. Because if you're coming into the conversation angry, upset, blaming, accusatory, punitive, all of those things, then the reason why your kiddo doesn't want to own up to their mistakes is you. But let's pretend that that's not happening, right? Let's pretend that you're working with me. We've already addressed all of the emotions that come up for you when your kiddo makes a mistake. So you're able to come into this conversation just 100% attuned to your child. This is awesome. We've already done our work. So your 1-2 punch is going to be, number one, creating an environment where mistakes are no big deal. So some of that is what we just talked about getting to the place where your emotions are not stirred up when your kid messes up, but also modeling, right? Like, I make tons of mistakes all the time. When I make a mistake, it's like, oops, guess I better make that right. I'm not upset. I'm not angry. I don't blame other people, all of those things. So modeling, creating an environment in which your child is totally allowed to make mistakes. Mistakes happen all the time. Solutions happen all the time, and everyone moves on with their life. So there's a lot of narration you can do for yourself about, like, oh my gosh, I put in flour instead of sugar in this recipe. I messed up. Oh, well, I guess I better start over. That kind of like narrating what's happening for you, narrating what's happening for your kiddo too. Oh my gosh, I forgot to turn my homework in. Instead of being like, what? I've told you 100 times. Now you can't have TV, blah, blah, blah. Just say, oh, well, you made a mistake. How are you going to make it right? You know, no big deal, right? So that's the number one punch, is the culture of your home around mistakes. The number 2 punch, you've already done this, the left hook, now you're going to do the right hook, okay? Number 2 punch is boundaries. So this is not going to be a surprise to any of my clients who are working with me already, because it's always a combination of emotional intelligence and strategy and how do we respond. Emotional intelligence and boundaries and consequences, all of that stuff. That is like the beautiful, magical blend of those two things. That's different for every family, what the ratio of those things is, but the blend of those two things is what creates incredible parenting and incredible behavior and incredible relationships. So we've got our emotional intelligence punch. Number 2 punch, boundaries and consequences. So you can set boundaries with your child. You sit down and try to have a conversation with your kiddo about a mistake they made, and it's all he said, she said, it's not my fault, you told me I didn't have to do it, blah, 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 right? You don't have to convince them. You don't have to prove to them that what they did was wrong or that they have culpability. They know they do. So instead, you just set a boundary and say, you know what, I'm happy to talk about this more with you when you're ready to tell me what your contribution was to this situation. or when you're ready to take a little bit of ownership, or when you can tell me how you contributed, or whatever it is. But you set that boundary and then you have to follow through. Boundaries are only as good as your enforcement. So you follow through on your boundary by walking away from the conversation. And maybe you have to give a consequence, and your kids, that consequence isn't fair because of this, and this reason. You could say, well, I'm happy to reconsider that consequence as soon as you're ready to tell me how you contributed to this situation. So obviously we need to tweak this stuff to be age appropriate. You might not use all those same words when you're talking to a 2-year-old that you would when you're talking to a 12-year-old. The concepts are always the same. Really great culture around mistakes. That's that emotional intelligence piece. And boundaries and consequences. That's that parenting skills piece. If you are starting to see clearly the formula for great parenting, but you're really not sure how to actually execute that formula, it's not enough for me to give you a recipe. You don't know how to get the ingredients. It's time for us to talk. There is a link in the description of this video. Click on it, set up a free discovery call with me. It's free. It's 45 minutes or an hour where we get to sit down and just tell each other what's going on. I get to hear all about what's frustrating you and what's tripping you up, where you want to go, what you want to create for your family. And then I get to tell you all my honest opinions and feedback and help you create a plan to make that dream a reality. So click on the link, set it up. I can't wait to see you soon. Bye, everybody.